If you could just recollect, which was that set you designed and suddenly found that the entire work of a month and a half being
I think it was I think it was India Today itself.
Ah, sure.
India Today conclave that gave me an awakening. The first conclave for India Today, and we had really worked hard on that project, and it was a multiple sets, lot of events during that time, because the first conclave was very grand. And
was it in Noida or
no, that happened in Taj.
Taj? Okay.
Actually Ashoka, not Taj. Taj was 25 years of India Today. Conclave happened at Ashoka Hotel. It was a fairly large event, the first conclave. Now it has become a very big event now. So the first conclave, I was directly working with Arun Puri and a couple of their team members.
Mr. Bagga and Ashish Bagga.
He wasn't there that time, so Kali was there.
Okay.
So Kali, Arun Puri, me, and a couple of more guys were there at that time. And we were the core team to conceptualize not only the design, but what all is going to happen during that conclave. So it was one of the first things that they were conceptualizing. So they were also not very clear about the nuances of it. So with us on board, we made a lot of things clear, and it was a huge success that way. And I think soon after that, I decided to kind of leave the event industry and then come back to architecture.
So then how was it? How was the transition?
That was a crazy struggle after that, because when you quit your high-flying job and you want to start from scratch, it's not easy. I had no contacts, nothing. So in fact, that is a time when any project would have, while you can look, because you wanted to make money, you want to sustain yourself, so any project was a welcome. So I remember doing odd jobs like doing 3D renders for a Mark III Razor for McCann Erickson, because I was good with 3D softwares. One day landing up with a job with a developer, Omax, to say that they said we have a kitchen to be designed, and landed up at the site. In fact, they were looking for a kitchen contractor who can build the kitchen. So I landed up and they realized that I'm an architect. They said, why don't you give some design inputs into it? So I gave my design inputs, gave a concept, and they said, why don't you build it? So my first project was actually a turnkey kitchen for Omax, the Sona Road villas that were happening. That time, these international kitchens were not so much into the demand. It was way back in 2000, I think 2002 itself. Yeah, 2002 itself. So the international kitchens were not so much into the market at that time. So that I remember me and my wife, we did a research on every component of kitchen, every hardware, every accessory, right from Kotla to every market, wherever you could pick up. So remember we went into the bolt and screws and literally redesigned, or rather designed everything that came into the kitchen and make it into a very glamorous kitchen as such. So we had concealed lights, we had open the shutter, you have the light coming on, and all done hands-on, on site itself. So no machines, no factories. Picked up a bunch of carpenters because the budgets were low. And the design turned out to be an extremely good. First time I remember because I had come from the events industry, I knew certain finishes and paints, right from automotive paints to other things, which is Duco is very common now. But in the architectural industry, Duco or automotive paint was not so common at that time. So in event industry, it was quite common. So we did the shutters using Duco, and it just created a huge rage. So they loved it. Omax, they loved that, and I think they said, for the first time we've had a kitchen which is an Indian-made kitchen, and which is so unique. So it was a good experience, and from there on we did a couple of more kitchens for more clients, and then we thankfully started getting houses and bigger projects, and that's how the company started.
Okay. So the company started in 2002?
Yes.
So what are projects have you done under the MUFA?
Okay, so within this brand itself, we pretty much now touched every sector. We go from stadiums that we have designed, international level stadiums. We've designed a lot of institutions, colleges, schools. We've done hospitality projects like resorts. We have done a lot of retail projects. We have done a lot of high-end residences. We've done housings. We've done offices and office designs. So any sector that we yet have to touch airports and hospitals. But apart from that, I think our gamut is, we can design literally from a stadium to the seat of the stadium. So product design to a large scale project. And we have pretty much covered everything. We've done urban planning projects, so designing of cities in terms of, we've done a lot of reports. So Kerala National Games, the entire feasibility was done by us. Or Chhattisgarh Sports City, the feasibility was done by us completely. So we were working with companies like ENY or Grant Thornton, and we were working out, so we were the planning partners for them. We would give them the urban planning and they did the financial studies onto that. So the comprehensive report was given to the government every time.
So now, from 2002, when you first did the kitchen project, to 2015, now towards the end of it, now your career began with, I was seeing architecture from a kitchen, and now you have almost touched upon all these. How have you seen, or how do you see the transition of a kitchen in a house?
Yes.
Because we were discussing just now.
Actually, that's very important, because for that, let's understand one more aspect. Why did I get so interested in kitchen design is because I was always into cooking. I started cooking when I was 8 years old. And a lot of people don't know I am actually kind of a chef as well and a food consultant.
You blog also.
I do a lot of food blogging. I'm a food consultant to a lot of people. And so for me, food was I had passion for food. So when it came to designing of kitchen, I could design it comfortably because I knew how to cook. So it is very important when it comes for an architect when you have kitchen companies now, which are German companies or Italian companies, they came into India, and the kitchens that they brought in were based on a lot of cooking that happens abroad, how they cook. Of course, you have better chimneys now. Of course, the filtration systems are better. We can make open kitchens now. But still, how we cook, how we make our chapati, how we make our frying, there is a certain procedure to it, a certain way in which you move from one part of the other to the kitchen, to the other side. In that, it is important first to be able to cook all of that, then only you can design, because a lot of times an Italian designer would not know where to put the chapati maker and where to put the frying pan, If they are placed far away, within that span of 10 minutes when somebody is cooking, you need all of that. So to be able to understand the placements of everything, I mean, a kitchen company will come in with modules and they'll place their standard modules that this is the oven, this is the microwave, and this. But to be able to understand the sequence of how it goes in a kitchen, it's very important to know how to cook. And that's where it helped me. So when the first time I was, after a long transition, was doing a house, and we use these Italian kitchens, and I particularly use a couple of companies which are very good and they understand and they're very adaptable. I could work with their designers and exactly tell them that change this and change that, which in the beginning they were a little apprehensive. They said, do you think this is going to work? I said, I take 100% guarantee it's going to work because I cook myself. And ultimately, no design change happened in the kitchen. The housewives were happy, and the kitchen has come out to be very, very successful as such. So yeah, there is really interesting intrinsic understanding, and I think the kitchens that are coming in from outside, they have a certain finish, they have a certain hardware. It's a whole industry out there. Right from how you put the screws, how you put it together, that industry in India at this point in time is lacking. I mean, we can design it, but people who are making right from screws to the board to the kind of paints, that whole industry it's not up to the mark that is there internationally. It's coming, it's happening here, but it's still in its nascent stage. And I think it'll happen fast because there are companies now which have started developing their own systems in kitchen out here. So it'll slowly happen. But
no, like while discussing, you told that a kitchen is as complex as a house.
Yeah.
No, I would like you to elaborate on that.
Okay.
Complexity is that.
Kitchen is not an accessory. Kitchen is it's as important, literally, as designing of a whole house, because when you take the time spent for an average person between two people, I'm not here saying that whether a man cooks or a woman cooks. I think both can cook. I cook in my house. When you cook yourself, you spend a good amount of time. You eat 3 times a day, which means you spend that much time in cooking also. I mean, at least 3 times the amount of time you eat in cooking. And within a day, when you spend that much of time in a place like a kitchen, you start with the environment, you start with space, you start with light, functionality, look, feel, comfort, user friendliness, interface, all of those things come in. It is a complex piece of machinery which has to work by itself. So it's not like a living room where you just put a few pieces of furniture, some artwork, some designer lights, and you're done with it. Kitchen has to function. Plumbing has to work. Electrical has to work. your ventilation has to work well. Each and every space how you use has to work well. So there's an overlay of a lot of activities in a kitchen when you plan it. So it's, one side you're designing a house and one side you're designing kitchen. So when you start from scratch, even if you go wrong with a single screw into a kitchen, you have messed up the whole design at times. So proportions of the platform to the edge detail, to how the shutter opens, to the heights, to anthropometries, it's a whole study by itself. It's a specialized study. It's not something that anybody says that, okay, I can design a house and I can design a kitchen. And more so when you're doing commercial kitchens. I'm doing commercial kitchens now for restaurants. I'm doing a couple of restaurants. It goes on to a different ball game completely, where you have to understand how chefs or the entire team of people in a restaurant work, because food has to be cooked in a matter of hours, has to be served in a matter of minutes. That efficiency can only come if the design of the kitchen is efficient. If the design is not efficient, then you can mess up the entire process of cooking. The moment you've messed up the process of cooking, you've messed up your way of living, and you messed up how, so your fancy living room or a bedroom will not matter at that time if you're not able to eat well. It's as important. That's how it is.
I would like to know how difficult is the large scale projects then from, how difficult is designing a whole township than a house?
I'll tell you a secret. Township is easier to design than a house.
Okay.
It's because in township you're not dealing with, you're designing for general masses. You're imagining a psyche of a mass and you're designing based on numbers. You're designing based on certain rules, parameters which you have assumed. You can't do that for a house. You can't do that for a house at all, because house you're designing for individual people. You're designing for psyches. So for you to be able to design an efficient house, you have to understand the psyche of the people you're designing for. So you literally have to get into their minds and deal with them on an everyday basis with decisions which come on almost an everyday basis, interactions, to bring them to a level where you want a certain kind of a design. It's far more complex to do a house that way, and that is what I have understood over a period of time. It takes me, it's more of a challenge for me, a bigger puzzle which I love doing. That's why I'm doing more houses right now, individual residences, than doing planning projects. Because over a period of time, doing a large scale project is one from the other. There are parameters which you deal with and you kind of crack the code. The puzzle is not that interesting anymore, and it becomes a kind of a monotonous exercise from one school to another. Of course, schools are different, but in a house, every house is different. People are different, backgrounds are different, how they live is different, their economic conditions, their locations, their culture, their religion. There are so many factors you have to deal with that it just keeps throwing googlies at you on an everyday basis when you're taking a design decision. One day you're dealing with somebody who's wanting absolute vastu, and another day you're dealing with somebody who's completely like a global traveler and says, I want the entire world. I want my house how I saw Daniel Craig's house, or how I saw Angelina Jolie's house. You don't want to do all of that. You want to do something which makes sense to his personality. So you have to kind of not only work on the house, you have to kind of work on his personality as well to make him realize that, no, that's Angelina Jolie, that's you, and for you, you're a strong personality. The house has to reflect you and not that person.
So how do you approach the client?
You're asking for a trade secret? No, I've been lucky that the clients approach me a lot of times for a house, and they come to me specifically for how I take up a project and how I deal with it. So there is a certain way MOFA has done projects. We have a different way of looking at things. We look at things in a, literally an out-of-the-box manner, where you put a problem in front of us and we will go out of that circuit and we'll see what all is there. So rather than just solving the problem, we look at how we make things better. How do we improve it to a level that it just goes on to a new dimension altogether. So to give you an example where a lot of times, Delhi has a thing of multi-family residences, joint families. It's easy to design a house for a couple of people, standalone thing. When you have to design a joint family house where there are 3 generations living together,
Yeah.
and there are about 8 bedrooms in a small plot of 500 square yard. By Delhi standard, it's small, but to put 9 bedrooms, 3 families, 500 square yard, each one having their own individual needs, 8 to 10 members in a family, from kids to that, it is an extremely complex process. Everybody has to be happy. Mainly you have to be happy as a designer, because the kind of concept you thought about as an architectural statement also has to come in. So within that architectural statement, individual dreams have to be fulfilled. It becomes, for you to understand that, you have to literally step into their shoes. You have to become them. You have to become so close to them as friends that you understand the psyche, and they have to understand you. They have to trust you. So I work like a doctor there. I tell them that I'm a brain surgeon. When you go to a doctor, you do not tell a doctor that prescribe this medicine or prescribe that medicine. You understand what the doctor wants. You go for those tests, you take the medicines, and you become all right. House is like that. I am understanding your psyche for a while now. In fact, even before I will start a project, it takes me a good amount of time to understand them, even before I draw a line. So understanding that psyche helps me understand what they're looking for actually. Because a lot of times, a lot of us are not clear for what we are looking for. It's a hearsay. We understand, okay, maybe I like this, maybe I like that. A lot of us are very indecisive about even what we wear and how we want to show ourselves. We are looking at how people think about us. For me, it's important to understand or make the person realize what they want and not what people want. Because in a house, you're not going to be happy living, which you have to live for years, unless the house is made as per how you want it completely. In fact, and that learning came to me from one of the OMAX directors only. When I was doing his house, I had designed this elaborate dining room for him. A nice formal dining table, 12 chairs. And he sat down with me. He says, do you know how we eat? We sit on the floor and eat. He says, what is the point of you giving me this dining table where I'm never going to use it? He says, do you think we are going to change our habits, my parents' habits, just because we want this fancy design? So we went back to the drawing board and redraw the entire system where it was a part dining table, but one could sit on the floor. So it was like a fusion in between. We had to literally go out of the box, forget our anthropometries of what we have learned in modernist schools, and design a Baitak kind of a dining area. Just more like a cross between a Zen sitting and an Indian Baitak. And that's how the learning comes in, that you have to understand how people live before you design for them.
How much average time does it take to design a house or a kitchen?
The way I've been talking about, it sounds very complex, but I think now we have learned and understood. So a house for us, totally from start to finish, happens in about 2 years, completely. So the day the client approaches us, down to the point when the house is handed over, it takes 2 years, because we've developed very efficient systems of understanding, designing, putting the designs together, construction, project management, on-site, following details. Literally within 2 years, we're able to handle and hand over the project, no matter how complex it is.
And the kitchen, I'm sorry?
Kitchen has always been a part of the house now. So it goes along with the process of doing it. But yes, because we're using international kitchens, orders need to be placed in time for them to make it. So you have to understand how Europe works, how their holidays work. So in most of the cases, the kitchen designing starts within the first 3 months of the house design itself. It's not a last minute decision. Right after the concept of the house, we get into the kitchen itself. Orders are placed way in advance. So by the time the house gets over, the kitchen arrives and it can get fitted. Because we work with the kitchen companies a lot in order to adapt our design, and that process itself sometimes takes about a couple of months. For them to understand what you want and to be able to come to a common ground between the people in the house, you and the kitchen company. All have to come to a same understanding of what the kitchen design should be. That's why we don't take ever a standard design from a kitchen company. We always work with them, customize the designs to the needs of the people.
Where did you, you said you customize those kitchens?
Yeah, we customize a lot of international kitchens. Customize in terms of from what components they have with mix and match, understanding each and every component, and then putting the right permutation and combination.
How difficult is it, coordinating with various agencies? So when you are taking up a project or residential project, so you are an architect, now you have to coordinate the plumber, the electrician, the other parts. How difficult is to strike a balance and coordinate?
See, as a firm, I'm not an individual. MOFA is not me. MOFA is an entire company of very able, intelligent professionals. All my associates, we work together, and we have very strong systems in our company which have now helped us to save time. Our systems have been designed to save our time, to make ourselves efficient. So we are one of the firms which works with less number of people but more output in a shorter span of time. And we've been able to achieve that only because we've got some certain set systems in terms of how to save time. What are the right questions you ask? We do not do mistakes. We do not revisit decisions. So every solution, every problem is well thought of before it goes onto the site, so that one doesn't have to revisit it. There are no, we don't go into trial and errors. That is not something that we believe in. We believe in perfection. Perfection which has come by redoing in our heads over and over again that this will work and this will not work. We use a lot of common sense, we use a lot of practical knowledge, there's a lot of learning from the site. So the coordinations, when we give decisions to an electrical consultant or a plumbing consultant or to a kitchen company, we intrinsically know what we want and what will work. That's how we save everybody's time into the system.
So from, like you said, it takes around 2 years to hand over the particular house. So how does it, like, from the sketching to the execution? It must have been like your design at time of execution must be something else, and at time of execution
that never happens.
Like
never happens. No? That no.
Then
Again, I again come back to the point that our designs are so well thought of that the first sketch that we ever present or approved concept by the client, I can put a picture of the 3D and the actual one, and you will not find a difference, because that is the level of experience and understanding of a project that we have. We don't just present a picture quickly to the client and say, okay, let's just look at this concept, and over a period of time it will change because there will be problems on site. No. When we present that concept, we take that first initial time, a lot of thought, a lot of brains, a lot of workshops happen with the client to put that together. Once that is there, then every effort happens in order to conceive or to put that design exactly on site. So a lot of mix of practical knowledge versus theoretical knowledge is important in this. You obviously take a decision when you're making a concept that nothing is impossible. We've built everything. We've done the most complex of projects. We're doing projects in Himachal Pradesh in extreme conditions where it literally there's snow for 2 months. The temperatures drop. We're doing a resort there. We're doing a project on the beach of Goa where there is sea water and salt conditions, and water comes literally at half a meter from the site. So we are doing extremely complex conditions. We've done projects in Gwalior which reaches 50 degrees in summers. So we have dealt with various conditions, various economic backgrounds, and actually our knowledge of overall architecture, we're dealing with various sectors, helps us understanding practically how a house has to be designed. So that is extremely important. When you've dealt with projects where the budgets are very low already, you get used to saving money. It's like, if you're designing in Mumbai, the space is less. So given a large space, you will utilize it properly. Because we've done so many public projects where the budgets are low, we know how to utilize finances properly. So decisions that are taken during a house are extremely, thought about that way.
So how much of formal education is translated? Like you were there, you from SPET, now you went to
CPT.
Then you went to design firm.
ETH, University Zurich,
Okay.
and then
you came to architecture. Now how much of your formal education was translated into practical when you started the first project?
it is extremely important to have good formal education in architecture, because that creates your foundation. Your understanding, your observations, your intrinsic knowledge of how to put things together, how to conceive an idea fast, can only happen once you have a very strong base or a foundation into the subject. Architecture is not art, it's not painting. where you just do what you feel like doing. Architecture has to work. It's a complex machinery where people use it. You transform lives of people out here. So for it to work, you do need to understand what goes behind, the services, the structure, how the anthros, the space, materials that will work. You need to have a deep knowledge of all of that. And a formal education definitely creates a very strong base in your mind. You may use a lot of practical knowledge. Of course, now for me is 50-50, what I've learned and what is practical. But for you to be able to experiment, to innovate, to take risks in the practical world, you have to have a strong basis, a strong foundation of the formal education. Unless your feet are firmly on the ground, you can't fly. So that is very important.
You use a lot of technology, even during 10 and 1 you were showing that.
Yeah.
So now, how is technology actually changing the design?
Say, one has to go back to design, how design has been understood over the years.
Yeah.
Industrial revolution changed the language of design for this world.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, the digital age completely changed the understanding of design for people. From that bulkiness, from that mechanical systems, we've come on to the digital systems, which are as small as a chip or nanotechnologies or various things. Architecture also gets affected by something like this.
Mm-hmm.
And more we're moving into this age of communication and the technology. Our houses are becoming more and more efficient. Architecture is becoming more and more efficient that way. Our way of working is becoming efficient. So we use a lot of that technology to kind of, right from making our designs efficient, we are able to take more complex decisions in a short span of time. So way back in 1950s, if concrete was a complex thing to deal with in India, when Corbusier did Chandigarh, computers were not there. They used to do a lot of things by hand. So the options, the kind of designs that would come in were limited to the mind of a single person.
Yeah.
Who would come up with a solution here. I mean, if he's a genius, he'll come up with a great design like Corbusier, or so on and so forth. But with the computers coming into it, with the programs coming into it, we are able to do multiple permutation and combinations of a far more complex nature in a short span of time. So we're able to see options. We're able to, and we are using a lot of programming and coding now into our designs itself, which means that one option that would take us about a week, probably 12 years ago, now we can do 20 options in a matter of 6 hours. That's the difference. And that gets translated on site as well, because once your drawings are efficient, then you're able to put a right side of fabrication drawings, how you make complex forms, complex shapes. You're able to produce very precise drawings which can be taken to the site, and that guy just cuts and welds and puts it together. So for a person on site, it's a mystery what he's building. We know what he's building, but for him it's just cutting of parts and welding together. But we have an overall thing in our mind what is going to come out. And a lot of times those guys on site get surprised by what they have created, because they've never imagined that this is what they're creating. They're just welding 1,000 pipes. But what happens with those 1,000 pipes, because there is a slight difference in each pipe, when they put it together as a whole, it becomes a complex thing to look at by itself.
And if I were to zero down to kitchen design,
Yeah.
now what role does technology play? Because you are designing kitchen, you began with that, and you are a technology enthusiast yourself. What role is technology playing now to give a diverse look and a unique look to the kitchens?
More than the look in the kitchen, it is important to understand efficiency of a kitchen, the space management in a kitchen. Companies like Blum and a lot of other companies who are doing hardwares are doing constant research in terms of how to make their hardware efficient and how to save that space within, like, even if you get a 1 inch extra space in your drawer, cumulatively you get 6 inches of space over 6 drawers, and that's a good amount of space saving in a kitchen. If the hardware that opens the drawer is as silent and as quiet, you save yourself a lot of stress later in terms of it. So there is a lot of innovation and technology in terms of making a kitchen efficient rather than the look of it. And in India more so with the kind of materials that we use, because I think the conditions here are much more rogue than what they are in the West. We use a lot of turmeric, we use a lot of oil, we have dust factor, we have everything that goes against in maintaining a design of any sort. The only material that can work in India is stone, but you can't make stone kitchens. We are also actually doing a research on doing a stone kitchen, a fully stone kitchen. Even the metal doesn't work, you know, because the scratches, the dust, everything. So the innovation and the technology or the research that goes in to create a kitchen design which is got as minimum maintenance as possible and as rough use as possible, because the servants in India are going to use the way they're going to use. It is a rough use, but at the same time, the kitchen has to maintain itself over a period of time. So it's the efficiency and the maintenance is where one goes into the innovation. Looks come later. In fact, we're using in one of the kitchens something called Michelized lacquer, you know, which is a company called Schneider which is giving these kitchens. So that finish works out to be a really good finish when it comes to a painted surface, because it's got the metallic particles mixed into the lacquer, and once you do the coating of that 9-layer coating on the surface, the dust and the scratches are minimally reduced in the entire thing. But
okay, one project which is very close to your heart.
very difficult. All of them are. We've designed 140 projects, and each and every project is close to my heart because no project is alike. It's like, you know, they're diverse, different projects, so they're very difficult to say one project. And more so, every project is a learning into another project.
Yes. That's
So you can't pick out one project and say, okay, that was my favorite, because the day you make that one project your favorite project, you stopped.
yeah.
Because that has become your ultimate project,
So
and then you can't go further than that. For me, the best project is yet to happen.
yes.
I think probably that will be the last project that I do would be the best project.
The most challenging one in that case. I'm sure there are challenges with each and every project.
I think 50% of projects are, in fact, I would say about 75% of projects are challenging. Because the way we design, the way we put together things, we are always thinking out of the box, we're innovating, we're doing things which people have not done before, it becomes challenging. Because for them, for even an engineer on site or a contractor on site to understand and adapt to what we are wanting to do, it is a challenge in itself. Working with people is a challenge in itself. So every project is challenging for us. And we learn, we love challenges, we love the puzzle, we want to crack the puzzle every time. So that challenge is a good puzzle for us, and we enjoy doing it every time.
Have you ever felt like that this project, I'm not liking this? That's not
It's
what
not-
I meant to be, that's what was not
This
happening.
feeling happens in mostly every project, and the moment that, and that is a good thing, the moment that feeling happens, you work towards bringing that project to a steer. It's like, you know, you're in a river and you're in a boat. Suddenly a nudge comes in and your boat goes in a different direction. That happens in projects also. So then you start your double effort against the current to bring it back on course. So in every project, at times in between, there are these bouncers, there are these googlies which come in, which tell you that, you know, things are not happening the way it should happen. It's taking away from its central concept. And that's when you start your double effort in bringing it back, working with the client, working with contractors, finding solutions, finding economical solutions to make it happen. So you go more than your role as an architect out of the way to make that project happen. You know, I've gone into understanding of how concrete is cast, how shuttering is made, finding offhand solutions for contractors, how they can save their money. Because unless a contractor is being able to save his money, he's not going to do it. It's all about economics in the end. If the client has to pay double for something, it's not going to happen. So you have to find solutions to get your concept within that cost frame, and that's always the challenge.
What is the current project you are working on?
We're working on a few high-end residences. We're working on a National Institute of Water Sports in Goa. We're working on National Institute of Fashion Technology NIFT in Kangra. We're doing hotel management IHM in UP. So there are quite a few projects of various scales. We're doing a resort, we're doing a few restaurants, few retail projects. So multiple kind of projects going on at the same time within the company.
So if you could just brief us on one of the projects.
Kitchen related?
That would be great. That would be great. That is much for our readers then.
Actually, you know, okay. You come to a stage in your career where when your passion and your profession gets mixed together. So food has always been a passion, and being a food consultant is being a passion. we've started working on a series of restaurants now, where not only we are designing the look and feel of the restaurant, but also the food that goes on the menu, the kitchen, and how that restaurant can become a success by itself. How not just by the virtue of the look and the interiors of it, but the functioning of it. Because a designer can just design and move out, and then they say it is the responsibility of the restaurateur to run that place. And with the running rents today, real estate and everything, and the food costs, that business is a very tricky business, you know, meeting your targets, being able to make profits. So doing that as a part, you go beyond an architect then. You go into the financial understanding of how a restaurant would work, how it will become a success. So you want to understand right from your design certain decisions that you take which become very crucial for you. So there is one part where how do you make a kitchen efficient for a restaurant. Even for a house, the same thing applies, because in a lot of cases, the clients that we are dealing with, I don't want to sound sexist about it, but a lot of our clients want the kitchens to be done for their wives, high-end clients, because they said they spend a lot of time in a house. So sometimes designing a kitchen is more important than designing the bedroom and the living room of that house. So we go in, and which is what we're doing with one of the houses as of right now, where we've done an open kitchen completely. And open kitchen where we've incorporated a breakfast area inside, we've got a double height, we've got a skylight coming in. So it is more of a studio space than just a kitchen. It's not a room where we fitted equipment. We started the house design with kitchen as the heart of the house. So with a double height inside the kitchen, how the pantry above connects to the kitchen down below, how the dining and the living space connects efficiently to the kitchen together, so that that lady who's working in the house, in that kitchen, can monitor the entire house very efficiently. You know, she can go back and forth, and at the same time, that kitchen is not a place where somebody thinks that, okay, I'm trapped out here. It's a place of liberation. It's a place where anybody kind of goes in and would love to stay there for a long amount of time. So that challenge to design that space is something that I'm really enjoying to do for this house we're doing.
So what are the challenges? What is the challenge? Greatest?
The challenge in this case, of course, comes from not so much from the kitchen companies, but sometimes from basic understanding or perception. People think that, why do you need a height of 15 feet for a kitchen? Kitchens are done in 8 feet, 9 feet height maximum. But to create that space, to get that light from the top, to have that skylight, to have those various things into the kitchen, that perception and that understanding needs to be ingrained into every person in the family. More so with the male members.
Yeah.
Because for them, they want to spend money on the kitchen, they want to do a great job of it, but at the same time, they don't really want to get into the nuances of changing the set systems. You lose floor height. The moment you do a 15 feet, you lose a floor above that. So the question always comes that why shouldn't we have a bedroom above that? Why do we need this whole area, a double height? So to make somebody understand the importance of something like this, that itself is a challenge, but more so they understand, and thankfully the design is coming out to be wonderful.
If you could say which kind is it and where is it?
I can't give that.
Okay. So how do you see the design changing forward?
More and more we're getting busy with our professional lives. Less time we have to cook and spend time at home. So kitchens are now becoming part of living rooms. And for a lot of youngsters that we're designing, for youngsters who are mainly professionals, we are not designing separate kitchen, dining and living. We're designing one space where a kitchen is an open kitchen, part of the lifestyle area, right at the center like an island, and you have the living and the dining all around it. So they can cook, they can talk, they can interact, they can have their friends coming over, they have their parties there. It has become a lifestyle in itself. And by doing a good kitchen, which is sitting in the middle of the room, somebody who's not interested in kitchen or cooking, whether the husband or the wife, I think it inspires them to come at least once and cook an omelette out there. And if somebody who hates cooking cooks even an omelette in the kitchen you've designed, I think it's a success. Because that kitchen has inspired somebody to go into cooking. So when a design can do that, when a design inspires you to do something like that, I think it's great. And for that, the future of it is to not deal with the kitchen like, you know, a side part of a house. It is important to understand it as the heart of the house. Now we go back to the traditional houses of India as per Vastu. Kitchens were placed at the center of the house. Housewife cooked near the courtyard. Courtyard was open, the kitchen was right next to it. People ate in the courtyard. It was always the heart of the house. That understanding is coming back to India. People are knowing, understanding more and more, and that is the future, where the kitchen literally becomes the center of the house.
And how would design as a whole, design profession as a whole, how is the design professionals and design as a profession changing?
I think with a lot of international communication, people knowing what's happening in literally in seconds through social media, the designs that are happening all across the world, designers are getting more and more aware. They're becoming more original in India. There's an entire, that there was a time where people were blindly following what West was doing, including the designers in India. Now they want to innovate. They want to do what is local, what belongs to them. Nobody wants to be seen with a design which has already been done before. Yeah? So there is a lot of originality that's coming in young designers like us. We want to think out of the box. We want to look at local conditions. We want to look at the challenges. And that's happening all across. I mean, a lot of my peers, a lot of my friends whom I know in the industry, everybody is trying to innovate somewhere or the other. And that's, I think, is a great thing.
I read somewhere that you said that you treat the buildings, I mean, your construction as living.
Not construction, but the design in itself. Yeah, the statement is every building is a living organism in itself, which is a storehouse of energy. Okay, so architecture is not a dead piece lying somewhere. It uses energy. People use energy inside it. People release energy inside. People release waste. So I think this world has seen enough wastage that has got produced by the human, whether it is through pollution, whether it's through the waste that we produce. We are, by the virtue of it, we're designed to create waste. We're designed to consume energy. If your house or any building that you spend your time in, I mean, most of us spend 80% of our time in some architecture or the other, not in the outside. So if your building can be designed efficiently, so efficiently, that that building can produce its own energy from the waste of the human beings that we produce, and becomes a cycle by in itself, which is what we're doing in one of the offices. We're doing an office for Delhi Pollution Control Committee, where we're literally using the sewage from the city to treat that water, generate methane, which is gas, to run a gas turbine, which generates electricity, to use the wastewater into air conditioning systems to cool the area, and to use the solid waste that comes out of it as manure into the plantations, the plants which in general give more oxygen and a better living environment to the people who are using that. We collect the entire rainwater that comes into that building and use for drinking purposes for throughout the year for the people. And at the same time, we've designed walls using materials which we worked with scientists, which can take the pollution or the smoke from the basement parking, clean it, and then give it out into the air. So the walls are working as filters. So it's a building that functions in itself, giving a clean environment, like an organism, literally, how a sponge or a living organism would work. To most of the buildings take energy and give out waste. This buildings takes the waste and gives out energy. It has been done reverse, like an organism, like a living thing. And that is our philosophy of work. And so most of the projects that we do, we try to enforce this. So we generate our own electricity, we try to do that. We generate our own water, we try to do that. We try to use the entire waste in turning into energy and going completely off grid. If as a revolution every building starts doing that, we'll be generating our own energy, we'll be generating our own water, we'll be generating everything ourselves, and we will not have to put that pressure on nature that is there. So that is the philosophy of architecture that we follow out here.
So this is your design philosophy?
Yes, which is, so we turn our buildings into living organisms. so that they take least amount of energy from the environment itself. In fact, they take in the waste and they give out energy.
So indirectly it's giving to society.
Absolutely. Giving to the world, to environment, to nature. Society is part of the larger nature and environment.
So who have been your influencers or inspirations in the field of design and in life in general?
My people that have influenced me are not just architects. So, of course, being architects, it's Le Corbusier who's been the largest influence in my life. But even chefs like Ferran Adria, or Heston Blumenthal, or artists like Van Gogh. You know, my inspirations come from all these masters who worked really hard in always innovating and coming up with something new in their fields. So whether it is this field of science or art or technology, all these mentors who have really worked hard in innovating and bringing something new to this world have been my mentors. I mean, I've always looked up to them and got my inspiration from there. And that is something that one wants to achieve, to create something new every day.
As your brand is MOFA, Manifestation of Fluid Architecture, wanted to know about the fluid architecture and how does it apply to the kitchen as well, and how?
Not so much about kitchen here. Fluid means where the ideas are not fixed. We don't have a fixed style. Every project is a different project. Every project we start from scratch. Every project comes a different idea with its own set of complexities. So it's a kind of a fluid way of thinking. It's an open way of thinking. We don't want to stick ourselves or get branded under a certain style of architecture. That's why we've done varied architecture, various fields in various styles, various budgets. There is no constraint. So you cannot correlate one project with another project. We have 140, 150 distinct projects, and they all sit separately. So that is where the fluidity comes in. It's the fluidity of the mind of a designer. It should not look as if it's been designed by a single mind. It is not a still way of designing.
No, I was just going through your collection of library. So from Le Corbusier to Yogi to Gita to, I was just going through Chanakya's Arthashastra also.
Yes.
So how important do you think it's reading? That's very evident from the collection that we have, not only here but outside also. And traveling as a designer.
Absolutely. Both are very, very important. A designer cannot design living in his own mind space. Okay, between me and my wife, who's my partner, when we started this firm, the common interest between both of us has been reading and traveling. And we read all kinds of things, discuss everything from history to politics to food to literature to architecture and design, paintings. There is no subject that we do not discuss, because we believe that learning comes from everywhere. I mean, you can literally look at a fly and learn something from there. Traveling, most of my understanding of design and architecture has come from traveling rather than sitting in the classrooms. When I've observed, I've traveled all across Europe, I've traveled to Australia, we've traveled to Middle East, we've traveled to various parts of the world, even within India. And the learning that we've got from everywhere, I think that is extremely important, which you cannot learn sitting in a classroom. And those observations of people, societies, their habits, how people use spaces, that gives you an intrinsic understanding of design and architecture, and you utilize all of that into design. You're learning from Arthashastra, the way Chanakya thought. You're learning from a chef like Ferran Adria or Heston Blumenthal of how they use the ingredients in a kitchen and come up with something else. You're learning from, literary guys like Umberto Eco. When you read Umberto Eco and you read things like Foucault's Pendulum, there are things that churn your mind. You think differently. Then you're not thinking only design. You can't think design to design. You have to think other things for you to be able to design. Because when your mind is free, when you're thinking about everything else but the design, then only design happens. If you try to concentrate or focus, you will not be able to focus. You have to free your mind. The moment you free your mind of everything else, every stress, you're able to focus. That's meditation. Design is the same. You have to free yourself of design ideas for you to be able to get a new design idea. It has to be an empty space. And the space gets empty by everything else but design.
At least for designers.
For designers. It's very important.
So any one space you would like to redesign, which one you think, yes, this is why you wish to redesign it?
A lot of times, a lot of spaces. Because you...
maybe globally and locally both, if you could just...
my own project or any other project?
Yeah. One, you have already done your projects.
Tricky question, tricky. In fact, we have done this exercise. The place where we are staying, Tara Housing, was designed by Charles Correa 40 years ago.
Yes.
Tara Apartments was designed 40 years ago by Charles Correa, and all due respect to him, that housing today does not take in the lifestyle of people because it was designed 40 years ago. People have got 3 cars, people have expanded families, FAR in Delhi has increased, that housing spreads a lot. So we have already done an exercise within our office where we have made high rises based on the philosophy of Tara, of how Charles Correa imagined Tara and how he designed it. Using the same philosophy, we've gone a step ahead and redesigned it, freeing the ground space for green areas. So we've got only a 10% coverage on ground and 90% given as a green surface, added trees which are 5 times more as a design exercise, and taken the units higher so that you get fresher air the moment you go on top. But at the same time, the ethos of what he designs in his houses, which is of very culturally based, family based residences or community based residences, that is what Charles Correa's architecture for housing has been. We've tried to follow the same principles in a newer manner, given it a step ahead, looking at the lifestyles of people today. So we've done that already, and I think maybe sometime I can share that design with you. And we've gone into presentations, public presentations, a lot of critiques on that, taken opinions from a lot of senior architects in terms of what do you think this whole thing, if it's done this way. And most of them have appreciated and liked the idea of changing that into something like this. So maybe someday, never know.
No, you are a very well-traveled person, so there must be a number of architectural delights that you must have been enthralled by. Wow. So if you could just name a few, ye design.
One building that really has inspired me, and in fact, I have a tattoo of that on my hand.
Huh? Wow.
It's a plan of a church called Rochon, designed by Le Corbusier, very close to the border of France and Switzerland and Germany. So it's one of the iconic buildings of modern architecture, one of his projects in his final stages, where he broke all of his own rules and came up with something like this. And it's a phenomenal space. I spent an entire day out there from morning till evening, going in and out, observing it. I must have clicked about 800 photographs of the same area, same place. And this is one building which inspires me on an everyday basis. And that's the reason I got it tattooed on my hand, so that I can look at it every morning. Every morning I can look at it, to get inspired. That's the best way. You can't forget it ever.
If you just say the name of that, the buildings.
I'll give you the exact name. It's called Rochon, but so it's written as RONCHAMP. It's French.
Mm-hmm.
So the Church of Rochon. I'll give you the exact name for it and the location of it. Actually, it's called Notre de Rochon. Notre is a church in French. Notre de Rochon.
How do you personally give back to society?
On a personal level.
Or maybe as OFA? Because
see, we work with we believe in a lot of collaborations actually. Design is not only a forte of architects. We work with a lot of sociologists, we work with a lot of artists, we work with a lot of product designers. We take up a lot of community projects. Recently we designed efficient dustbins for the city, which we won a couple of awards for, where we using the smart technology. So we've designed these dustbins which carry a chip inside in the lid itself, which every time somebody throws garbage into it, by the virtue of how much weight the garbage has, that RFID chip communicates with the metro chip in your wallet, because everybody these days carries a metro card. A metro card carries an RFID chip. So that instantly communicates and give you pointers for metro. So more garbage you throw in the dustbin, more points you redeem in the metro. So a lot of times your metro rides become free. This is the solution we've given to Delhi government to put these dustbins all over the city, which are going to be designed using recycled plastic, put on every street pole so that people don't have to look for it. The light is already coming from the top. And the moment you throw dustbin, you redeem points on a public transportation system. I think that return policy works best with people.
Yeah.
And as a prototype, we developed it, it worked really well. And these are the kind of exercises or small things that we try to pick up. We have taken up social causes that are becoming a huge nuisance everywhere, whether it's the rain, the farmers, how to protect their crops from the rain, or small factors within the city itself, and try to solve those problems using design. Because we believe that every problem has a solution through design, if you just give it a thought. So we put our ideas forward. Of course, a lot of times it gets caught up into bureaucratic circuits, but our job is to design, and we do that. Our job is to ideate, to come out with things for the society, and we continuously keep doing that from time to time. So we have our own research cell which does it. We have our own foundation which kind of looks into something like this, and we, from time to time, whenever we get time, we look up to take up these problems and come up with some design solutions and present it to the right people. Sometimes they get taken up, sometimes they become a theoretical thing.
And what about this project of this dustbin one? Has there been a pilot project now?
Not yet. We're still awaiting
the proof.
something, yes. I mean, somebody has to take it up, Delhi government, somebody needs to.
But you have proposed it to the government? We
have proposed it to the government. We proposed it during a competition. In fact, the competition was organized by India Today itself. We won the award for it as one of the best designed dustbins. During that time itself, it was proposed. But things take time. They don't time.
So how do you motivate and manage your people? Because now it's been more than a decade and a half that you have a team now, and you say they're your partners, and as
I think MOFA motivates people themselves. People work for themselves out here. It's not a one-person run company. It's a democratic company. Everybody has decision-making power. Everybody puts forward their ideas. Even an intern out here sometimes can question me if I'm going wrong. And we give that liberty. We believe in openness of ideas, of intelligence, of smartness. We do not believe in bureaucracy of who's a senior and who's a junior. Everybody is equal out here. Everybody has brains, everybody can think, everybody is smart. And when everybody has brains and they can think, then everybody has the ability to question. And asking questions is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. More questions you ask, more solutions and more answers will come out. This is what this company has believed in. And that creates an environment for people to work. They want to come here. They treat it as their own company. They treat it as their own environment. And they take it as personal challenges when it comes to every project. It's not my project or his project. It's everybody's project. So everybody looks into it as their own personal project. And when that feeling comes in, then you don't need to motivate anybody. Then it's a self-motivating place.